And so we apply this moisturizer and it feels like the skin is healed again. But it's actually not, it's just a feeling. And adding triggering ingredients to that kind of skin is just making things worse. Although it might feel better when you apply it. So let's start from the beginning. Our skin is one of the 3 barriers keeping us alive. We have the gut barrier with the microbiota and the balance in the gut that makes sure that nutrients and good stuff enters our bloodstream and things that are bad for us leaves our body. We have the blood-brain barrier, which is responsible for only letting nutrients and oxygen into our brain and letting all of this other bad stuff out. And the third barrier is the skin barrier, also with a microbiota that is responsible for letting stuff that are not wanted inside the body out and keeping stuff that it wants in, like hydration. And all of these 3 barriers are interconnected. When there's a disbalance in one barrier, like the gut, you can see it in form of skin problems. Or when you have skin problems, it can manifest as a psychological issue in the blood-brain barrier. So looking at the skin as just one separate entity is just very old school. And thinking that applying products to just the skin will solve all the problems is also very old school. So what happens when you have a leaky skin? It means the skin barrier is not functioning the way it was intended to, meaning it will let out what is supposed to be inside the skin, like hydration, e.g. water molecules, and it lets stuff that are supposed to be outside on the inside, like pathogens, toxins, allergens, triggers, and so on. And when those pathogens, allergens, toxins, and irritants enter the skin, it creates inflammation, which further leads to even more leaky skin. In order to understand inflammation, we need to understand the concept of homeostasis, which is the body's and the skin's default state. And that's when everything works as it should be and the skin and the body adapts to the environment around us. That's when the skin is elastic, plump, hydrated, and feeling glowy. And the skin always wants to get back to that default state. It's always fighting for that. So when the skin is in homeostasis, it can adapt to things happening in the environment around us, like UV light, like pathogens trying to attack us, combating the humidity level in the air. But when something destroys this balance, like UV light, or you cut yourself, or using inflammatory ingredients in your skincare, your body will respond with an inflammatory response. And inflammation is great. It will make sure that that part of your skin is healed and you can go on living in homeostasis again. But the problem arises when this inflammation becomes chronic. So what can drive chronic inflammation in the skin? Well, it can come from the inside through, for instance, a leaky gut, or from a toxic lifestyle, but it can also come from the outside via oxidative stress, UV light, and triggering and inflammatory ingredients in skincare. Now things have become very theoretical here, so I think it's time for an example. And I would like to use dry skin as an example, because that's one of the most common problems I hear people having. So maybe you recognize yourself in this, that most of the year your skin is dry, you have so-called dry skin type. Whilst during the summer months, or when you go on vacation, you go to a tropical place, your skin suddenly feels quite okay. But then when it becomes cold and dry in the air, your skin starts to feel dry and sensitive again. And so you go and buy a moisturizer, maybe a fat one. You start applying it and feel that your skin feels a little bit better. And so you keep applying it until those summer months come back, or you go for that vacation. So what is actually happening here? Well, the person in the example doesn't just have dry skin, he or she actually has a leaky skin or a non-functioning skin barrier, meaning it can't adapt to changes in the environment, such as humidity levels. So when the environment around is perfect, the skin feels okay, but as soon as there's some changes, it can't adapt itself. And so we apply this moisturizer and it feels like the skin is healed again, but it's actually not, it's just a feeling, because you need to apply this product over and over again for the skin to feel moisturized. In best case, the skin will not react to the ingredients in this product, but it probably will, because the skin is dry, meaning it is leaky, meaning it is inflamed, meaning the skin barrier is not functioning in the way it should. And adding triggering ingredients to that kind of skin is just making things worse. Although it might feel better when you apply it because of the fatty consistency, but it's not actually healing the skin barrier. Another thing that is often not thought about is that, especially here in the north, we consume a lot of caffeine and alcohol, especially during those cold months. And those two are messing up our fluid balance in the body. and making the skin very hard to gain any fluid from the inside and also from the outside where it's already
dry.
because true hydration doesn't come from the creams we apply to our skin, but from what we drink and eat and from the water molecules in the air. And so thinking just applying creams to our skin will solve the problem is just ridiculous because true hydration comes from what we eat and drink and from the water molecules in the air. So what should one do if you have dry skin? Well, we'll get to that in the chapter about dry skin, but first we need to understand the functions that makes up the solution. So to keep it simple, let's talk about the three main functions that are crucial for understanding your skin. The first being the water balance in the skin, second one being the microbiome, and the third one being the skin structure. So the water balance is actually something called the water and moisture balance that contains of two things. The first being the natural moisturizing factors, which are small molecules that are attracting water molecules and helping them getting down into the skin layers. And the moisturizing part is the lipid layer, which is a kind of wall of fats that are keeping the moisture locked into the skin. So hydration doesn't just come from creams that we put on the skin, on the lipid layer. It also comes from water molecules in the air, but also from what we drink and eat from the inside. Another part in hydration is, of course, the blood circulation with all the nutrients and oxygen that it brings to our skin, and also the lymphatic drainage system, which is responsible for the water balance in our body, but also making sure that toxins and stuff that we don't want in our body and our skin are being flushed out. And then we have the microbiome, which is a crucial part to the skin and its function. And it's a bunch of bacteria, fungus, and other microorganisms that are living in symbiosis with our skin, just as they do in our gut. And they support many important functions given that they are in balance. They protect us from pathogens such as other bad bacteria or toxins and irritants. They also create the acid mantle, which is the skin's pH, which helps keeping bad bacteria out. And the skin microbiome actually also communicates with your immune system, making sure that if a pathogen enters your skin, the reaction from the immune system, i.e. inflammation, is in proportion to the threat. Which means if you have a disbalance in your microbiome, your immune response may be bigger than it should be, meaning more inflammation than there should be. So when the microbiome is disbalanced, a lot of things can happen. Your immune system will start to overreact with more inflammation, your skin becomes leaky, bringing in more pathogens inside, creating even more inflammation, and so forth. And the third part of the skin functions is the structure of the skin, which fibroblasts are responsible for. Fibroblasts are the ones who are creating collagen and elastin in our skin, and those two are responsible for the structure and the youthful look of our skin. Collagen are the proteins building the structure and firmness of the skin, while elastin is making sure the skin is elastic and gets back to the same position if stretched out. So when collagen and elastin are broken down by inflammation, it starts making the skin look less young, less firm, less elastic. And just as with the barriers, all of the three functions and more, of course, are all intertwined and working together. The water balance and microbiome are intertwined because the water balance will help the microbiome thrive and feel balanced, which in its turn helps the skin not overreact to pathogens through too much inflammation, which will keep the water balance intact. The microbiome and the fibroblast also interact because the microbiome protects us from overly intense inflammatory responses, which helps the fibroblast continue doing their work efficiently, leading to a better, younger skin. And the fibroblasts are also interconnected with the water balance because a good skin structure is what supports a good water retention. So as I said before, we need to be able to look at these functions from a holistic perspective rather than just separate entities.